I am Peter Howe, Wellness Within Reach and wellnesswithinreach.com with my good friend Will Marsh from Premier Research Laboratories. We've taken quite the journey over the last many, I'll just say, gatherings and interviews, if you will. I am one who is a great practitioner. I am not the technician that can hold all that good technical stuff. And that's why I have Will here because he knows this stuff, the biochemistry, etc., incredibly well. He sleeps with it actually. So
As we all do, right?
that's right. Totally. So, anyways, we've taken the journey about really starting the immune system, working with the gut biome, and all these other levels of what it is to be healthy. And today we're going to really just jump in and start touching on why we still have allergies if we're doing all this good stuff for ourselves. So, with that, well, let's let you have the reins and we'll, by the way, this is our second recording on this. Someone didn't push the record bill button. Wasn't my fault. Anyways, there he is.
Yeah. Well, thank you as always. It's a pleasure, and I hope this serves as a form as education. Spurs your health journey. What we're doing here is just providing you a guide and a template to get your thoughts churning. And I know for me in my health journey, it's about that exploration, that thought, that stimulating thought that makes you question. What are you doing in your day-to-day life to optimize your health and wellness? And so, kind of as a review, and I encourage you all. We have a good treasure trove of information that we've kind of put together from previous seminars or previous webcasts, as we call them. And so we are just wrapping up a talk about digestion, and it is actually the perfect segue into allergies and immune health and immune optimizations. And really just, when we talk about allergies, we're talking about optimizing inflammation and immune reactions in the body, right? And so I encourage you all to kind of go back, because as we go through this next series over the next couple episodes, we will probably be revisiting some concepts and be building back into that in terms of supplemental recommendation strategies around that. And I encourage you all, if you have questions, if you want to have that engineer to help guide the steam engine of your health and wellness journey, Peter Howell here at wellnesswithinreach.com is always here to support you. He is our technical expert to help guide you and understand where you're at so that you can spur your own health journey from there. So with that being said, we're today's kind of segment is going to be kind of the introduction of allergies and why they are so important in terms of how they are relevant to your own health and wellness journey. I think the topic of allergies really is a topic of optimizing your immune system. And, when we go into what are allergies, how I like to describe it to clientele and practitioners who are entering the allergy field is essentially your body has learned a improper immune response. Essentially, it is being triggered by something in the environment, something in your life that really shouldn't be triggering, but your body is reactive to that. And so when we talk about that, and when we talk about strategies within that and supplemental strategies to that, I think we always have to start, right, Peter, is saying, hey, what sets you up to have this type of reaction? And a lot of times you're not born reactive to the world around you. You learn to be reactive to the world around you. And I think that's a very profound thought. We come into this being, into this existence where our body's learning how to navigate and learning how to adapt to different stressors and environmental kind of elements. And so when we see allergies, a lot of times they start from birth, and then there's another subset where you kind of progress through the chain of life, and essentially that allergy manifests itself, and you're in your 30s, you're in your 40s, and you're like, well, I used to be able to eat gluten all the time, right? But now every time I eat that big bowl of pasta, I'm going to the Netherlands, so to speak, and enjoying that sort of reaction. And so, what we're really talking about is, when we talk about supplemental strategies with allergies, we're helping to build in the reinforcements to help the body kind of relearn how to have an appropriate response. And so, Peter, do you want to add anything to?
Well, yeah, there's a
I
billion.
mean, there's a lot to add.
Go on. This is the subject that is just like yes, but from the practitioner standpoint, and I'll just say, from my standpoint, a quick way of really looking at allergies, it is a state of reaction. And it's from me and through so many clients I've worked with, it's because the body is being triggered by a specific issue, be it a food, be it an emotion, you know, just environmental in the home. Is it the air you're breathing, as you touched on? And the part is, a lot of it has to do is the body finally, because our environment is so clean, haha, that there's no more room within us to be able to release any kind of stimulant that is uh, now creating that symptom. And that's basically, an allergy is a symptom that has no place to go.
Yeah, and when you look at Western medicine and kind of where the allopathic train of thought is and the reductionist view, it's saying we are going to address that system. And when we look at the immune system, we have the innate and we have the adaptive immune system. And when we talk about the innate is kind of your barrier, your integrity system to kind of protect you from the reaction of the world, right? So your skin, some lymphocytic tissue, the different, cilia and mucosal membranes, right? All these kind of fortifications around your body that kind of prevent the agitation or the stressor from coming in. But then we have the adaptive immune system. And when we talk about allergies, it's a combination of both. It's the innate and the adaptive. And there can be kind of a causation within the innate and a learned expression within the adaptive immune system. And we're really having to touch on both. Now, where allopathic and kind of reductionist views and where we're at right now in modern medicine, a lot of times we're looking at the innate immune system with the symptom, right? We're not going into trying to help the body relearn the adaptive response to the stressor that's in the environment. And I think that is so crucial. First and foremost, when you talk about allergies, is you have to always kind of have a conversation about both of those systems and have strategies around both of those systems. And so, as we progress through this topic, we will very much so be talking about the innate. We will be talking about the adaptogenic. And then we also, I think, so centering to today's kind of thought and today's, brief introduction is the why. Why are we seeing this rise of allergies? Because if you look 200 years ago, even 50 years ago, the number of foodborne food allergies or just allergies in the environment were dramatically less than they are now. And kind of what's the rationale? And I think Peter gave a great introduction to that. But when you really look at the research and kind of the understanding of where the the thoughts to allergies is going, is it is that hygiene hypothesis. We live in a society so removed from the natural world in a lot of ways that we are not being exposed to the environmental elements that our body should know that is friend, right? Essentially, our body has to learn what's friend and foe. And if we don't basically hang out with our friends enough, it's gonna think it's a foe. And so when you have this very clean environment, sterile environment, you raise your children in that sterile environment. You yourself are in that sterile environment. Your body starts to not know if that natural element is a potential aggressor, right, for the immune system. It doesn't know innately. So because it doesn't have that constant exposure, right? Constant exposure a lot of times leads the body into this scenario where it's not as reactive, right? And that's a dangerous thought, right? Because you could be constantly exposed to a negative element and potentially, be I guess calm, not in a reactive state with that when you really should. So keep that as kind of in the back of your mind. But when we really look at allergies and we kind of look at the history of the progression of the number of people that suffer from allergies, it really is as we've moved from a agrarian lifestyle to a modern society. And so when you look at, like if you go to Amish villages or, agrarian based cultures, in Africa or wherever in the world, right? There's a very, very low incident of allergies in those populations. And why is that? What's the thought behind that? Well, they're consuming, foods from the earth that are harvested, annually to the season. And, we think about how that impacts the microbiome, how that impacts the exposure. I mean, you think about, you're outside, mulling the ground and toiling in the earth and being exposed to these various elements all the time. And you are essentially helping your body learn, okay, this is the environment around me, and this is how I'm going to react appropriately. And so if you take a reductionist view, you isolate yourself, you go work from home, you're in your apartment or your home all day long, you don't go outside, you have a very limited, less biodiverse diet. Essentially, there are no, innumerable exposures, and you're very singular focused in what you're being exposed to. So the body essentially doesn't really know. You go outside and you get a whiff of pollen, right? And you haven't been exposed to that regularly. The body's gonna be like, man, this is potentially a bad thing, and have a whole reaction to that. And then it becomes an ingrained, learned reaction, which you're having to deal with, seasonally from there. And so it's just one of those things where you look at kind of a reductionist view. It's a very symptomatic approach. We're not going to the root cause. We're going to say, well, I'm going to prescribe you Benadryl or some of these other anti-allergy medications, and you're going to take it during your allergy season, and then you're done with it from there. We're not actually going to try to go to the root cause of why your body is so reactive to those natural elements around you.
I'm going to just jump in and really just say, here, Wellness Within Reach, and certainly Premier Research, what we are about is understanding the why, and going not for cause, the symptom, because that's just the outreach, that's the level of dysfunction. What we're trying to do is go to sourcing. And one thing that you were diving into is the natural biome, the microbiome that lives in here, that we need to get from the outside by appropriate agriculture. We need to be eating those veggie, etc., grass-fed, whatever, but coming from more of the source instead of something that's been sprayed with Roundup or glyphosate, which is just now really hitting, it's the hot button now. And they're relating that to, gluten and sensitivities, because we're in a culture now of suppressing the immune system. And it's not about keeping it awake and vibrant. And if we don't step up, we're going to be like they're now promoting, who watches television these days and doesn't see an ad for allergies? Not because it's spring, but you're seeing them all winter now, et cetera, because I'll just say we've been taught, I'll use the words gently, we've been guided into an environment that really does not support health anymore. So with that, sorry for the interruption, but why we're here today is because we care enough about all of you who might be listening to this, that, I had my health journey, still always do, but I took myself from a point of really ill health, near death multiple times, to being pretty vibrant and getting more vibrant all the time with years to come. And, we all have our health issues, but if what we're getting to in these next few sessions, I think can be a real game changer for so many of you. So sorry, Will, I just had to throw that in.
I have a passion, when I was younger, right? And I think most people overlook allergies. I think, when you look at modern society and when you look at where we're at in a culture, it's like, oh, I can take a anti-allergy medication and, I'll get through it. It's not a big deal. I would encourage the thought, if you're an individual that is prone to allergies, you have food sensitivities, food reactions. Allergies can be both food-based, the GI tract, or they can be, air-based. It's the environment-based. What are you allergic to in the environment, right? If you have an inappropriate response, that to me is a red flag, and something to very seriously mull over and not take lightly, and not just put a band-aid over the kind of issue, because there's an immune dysfunction going on. There's a learned immune dysfunction going on in your body in terms of this exposure element and the downstream potential consequences to just allowing that to run rampant and just band-aiding or filling in the gap with a potential allopathic medication that essentially treats the symptom but doesn't go to the root cause of why. That then propagates a kind of ill health manifestation that continues along for years to come. And when we look at the immune system and we look at chronic conditions and we look at kind of the population as a whole, and what is kind of the plague of our culture and our society, they're immune-based and inflammation-based, chronic diseases, right? And so allergies, the allergy kind of paradox that we're seeing in our culture today as a society, essentially feeds into this chronic ailment scenario. And so if you're in your 30s, you're very prone to runaway allergic reactions in terms of, environmental exposures. It's something to say, well, how can I get to the root cause of why my body is so reactive, and how can we work in strategies to support the body and learning how to have a more appropriate response? And that's where, modern medicine still does not have a very good technique to address that. I mean, we are looking at, I think there will be potential immunotherapies that will arise in the future, but still there will be very much a reductionist view of, how we're going to address that approach, when in reality, the body should be a very dynamic system. It should be a system that can calm itself on its own, but also invigorate itself when needed, right? And so when we look in terms of immune strategies and immune optimizations with allergies, it's saying, how can we immunomodulate? How can we give the body a book, so to speak, on relearning the immune system? And that's where that book has to be individualized for your background, your traits, your history, what you've been exposed to, and why you're so reactive. And that is not a just take this capsule and I'll see you in a month. That is, understanding. And that's, I think why Peter and we here at Premier Research Labs are so fervent about, having a health professional guide you along that journey, is because they're your engineer. They're steering the train on how, and now helping you navigate, because they can see the 360-degree picture of, okay, well, yeah, you were exposed to this antibiotic as a child, and you didn't play in the dirt, and your mother was a somebody very clean, right? And so we can unravel the story and see kind of where there is different deficits in the health journey, and kind of reinforce and relearn at certain areas. And when we talked about the gut, and when we talked about the immune system in the gut, in one of our episodes, a couple sessions back, just that alone, just think about that alone, how much the GI tract impacts the learned immune system and the learned immune traits, and how that carries over through the rest of the body. I mean, 70% of the immune system is based in the gut. And essentially, if you aren't addressing that or looking into strategies of fortifying the immune-based GI system and the system around that, you're losing an opportunity to really help the body relearn and have an appropriate immune response from there. So
I'll just jump in that, so much of our body is viral, is bacterial,
mm,
and the idea is to be able to have the body be able to uh, be in a supportive nature. But when we are deficient in nutrition, deficient in vital energy, I mean, how many of all of you that are listening are running fatigued, wake up foggy headed, have bloating, have the achy, stiff joints? Those are all signs that there's an imbalance or chaos, or the body is not strong enough to deal with the, what is it, a couple 100,000 insults a day that we receive for our immune system to deal with. So, it's uncomprehendable for my small mind that this consciousness here called body can sustain so many insults, and we aren't just sitting in a pool somewhere of mush, professionally speaking. So the part is, between Premier, Wellness Within Reach, the idea is to take you on a journey, build the body up, and get rid of what's not necessary, so you can get back into a quality of life that you so desire. Um, I'll just share one extreme allergy story, which you know very well, Dr. Bob Marshall and the broccoli case, right? So this young teenager becomes uh, anaphylactic towards broccoli. Through working with a little process we do to, I'll just say, negate that reaction to broccoli, this young teenager started remembering that when he was about age 8, I think it was, he was eating broccoli soup and watched his dog get hit by a car, or a neighbor's dog, whatever. But very traumatic. But it took multiple years for that shock to establish and relate to broccoli. To this day, as far as I know, haven't heard any updates, his sensitivity is gone. But what I'm getting at is, it's not just about our physical environment, it's also about our emotional environment, our mental environment. And again, how's our house? How's our office? How's our car? What,
And I
how,
mean, it's such a good point, right? And I think you don't glaze over if you're listening to this now, and this is kind of a new thought. Allergies, immune inflammation, it's a 300, it's your being in this existence right now, and all the different factors that you're interacting with, right, as a whole. And when there's some wonderful strategies that we promote with Premier Research Labs and our health professionals like Peter Howell here, essentially in terms of looking at how the body is interacting with the environment around it, right, and the emotional state of the body. And I can't, if you are an individual who's hyper reactive, type A personality, go getter, singular focus, easy stress, there's a whole emotional paradox that could be increasing the reactivity, right, that you have to certain environmental elements, right? But there's a whole bioenergetic principle to what that really is tapping into, right? And how your own biophotonic field, which we've introduced briefly, and we'll continue to explore and hint at. And here Peter Howell here is always happy to explore that further. But that whole paradigm, right, in terms of how your self is set up and when it's exposed to certain elements, can set up a whole chain of reactions downstream. And I think modern science is only now just tapping into this kind of thought process and the metamorphosis of, well, how is that individual interface? How are they right now? And when they have an exposure, how is the body reacting? Because that is a very real dynamic kind of situation, which we as health professionals and you as a individual on your health journey need to be very aware of. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot to this subject matter.
It'll be a fun little series.
It will be a fun little series. This is a little bit more of an introduction. So what I will share with you all in terms of one of my, just favorite products to, get your wheels turning, so to speak. I'm actually obviously working with the Zoom here. So as always, you can go to wellnesswithinreach.com, your authorized vendor of Premier Research Labs products. And if you ever need to contact Peter here or schedule an appointment to get on his consulting paradigm, there is his number. But one of my favorite products, and we'll discuss this further, is, and we'll probably really start with digestion again on our next episode, but our fermented mushroom blend, and mushrooms in terms of immunomodulation and overall immune health. This is a wonderful, robust blend. We've talked on it before in terms of digestion, but when you have mushrooms are immunomodulatory compounds. They have these various beta-glucan derivatives that actually help to, they're really the textbook of the GI immune system in helping to relearn and have an appropriate response. And so if you're looking, you have a GI sensitivity, you're looking to bolster how your body has in terms of reactivity in the GI tract, I would definitely give the fermented mushrooms a look and explore, further immune products here. And we'll be diving into those future episodes with Peter as well.
So due to our time restraints, we could totally ramble on some more, but today we're just putting out the intro, and I invite you all to, if you're at all interested in taking good care of yourself, stay tuned. And this will all be up on our little YouTube channel and eventually on the website also. And I invite you to invite your friends, because the more each of you can support each other in your quest for amazing health, it gets easier and easier. It doesn't have to be a chore, and it can become everyday life where you make the right choices on how to take care of yourself. So with that, Will, I just say thanks once again for sharing time. And to all of you out there, a big hug and lots of heart to you. Stay healthy and keep having fun. Great bless. Bye.